Blessed to be a part of your day. Coming up, we'll talk to best-selling author Mike Stickler. We'll get his thoughts on the latest concerning the land, the government, and Cliven Bundy. Mr. Stickler, please stand by. Quickly to Pam and Emmett. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Good morning.
Thanks for your patience.
I just wanted to say that I thought that Mazie Hirono's comments were very offensive to me because I have critical thinking abilities. And to just put men out there as the, bad guys is really just not doing a service to anyone.
Well, and when men fight back to vilify them even more, do you agree with what the president said? And for those people that are just waking up, the president had a full-throated defense of men last night. Let's take a listen.
It's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of. This is a very difficult time.
Your thoughts, Pam?
Yes, I feel like he's right about that. I feel like if you things can be flung at you, whether they're true or not, you have no way of defending yourself of things that happened so long ago. I just really feel like it's a disservice to the country.
Well, that's why we need to keep this rolling, because you've got the press, the Democrats, and everybody else trying to drive it out, to try and destroy the traditional American male, believe it or not.
No, I believe it. It irritates me when someone like her comes out and tries to speak for me. I don't believe what she said. I think she's wrong.
Well, could you imagine if Brad Little said, "Well, I'm a man, and I'm a man of Idaho," or something of that, the way Paulette Jordan uses her language? I mean, that's right. what happens.
Right. And I have a husband and I have a son, and I do worry for them, even though, my son was not a person who partied and he didn't go out. It still doesn't mean that he's safe. And that does worry me, yes.
Well, agreed, Pam. Keep your powder dry. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Mike Stickler coming up next. First, one more call. Liberty Linda joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Liberty Linda.
Good morning, Kevin. First of all, I'd like to say that the people of the John Birch Society are the most honorable conservatives I have ever met.
Sure.
George Soros, pardon?
I just was agreeing with you.
Yeah, George Soros does not fund them, and Tom Munn, my friend, always speaks with facts and wisdom. Now that I said that, let's talk about what happened last night. It was so wonderful hearing the people saying, "We want Kavanaugh" last night. What a wonderful, honest sound to my ears. I hope Judge Kavanaugh and his family were listening last night. And it was wonderful to hear how the American people feel about what's going on. So that, when Judge Kavanaugh walks into the Supreme Court, he can walk in with his head held up high and know that the people are behind him and his family. So anyway, I want to thank you for your wonderful callers, Kevin. Every day listening to them, you have the most wonderful people listening to your show.
Well, we appreciate you, Liberty Linda, and we're of the people, by the people, for the people.
And I believe that. We need to stand up for what we know is true and not listen to always what's going on in the news in our country. It's the people here are the foundation of this nation, and we have great people here in the United States. So thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you, Liberty Linda. God bless.
You as well.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Joining us now, it's been a while. I think the last time we had him on, he was in the studio with us, Mike Stickler, author of, the new book, Cliven Bundy, American/Terrorist Patriot. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you today?
Good to have you with us. So you're coming back to Idaho, this time in Post Falls, but I remember the last time you were here. How you been?
I'm doing really well. I have probably gone 6,000 or 7,000 miles since I saw you last, telling the people about Cliven Bundy and what had happened down there and the American government's overreach in southern Nevada and throughout the West. And been just meeting some great folks. Many of them are your listeners, so I'm glad to be back here with you Thursday night.
Mike, let me ask you, have people forgotten about the Bundy situation?
Well, the people that are paying attention haven't. The media and those that are in urban areas have chased off after the next shiny object and the things that are interesting to them for the moment. But folks that are living independently, living in the red states, those folks that are liberty-minded, they know what's going on with the Bundys, and they know what's going on with the land issues across the West and like to stay informed. And so still having good-sized crowds. I'm down here in Idaho Falls right now and heading your way. And, again, big crowd last night of folks just really interested in what's going on.
What was it like for you to be in prison with the Bundys?
Well, prison's a lousy experience for everyone. But what I found fascinating with meeting Cliven was when I first met him, honestly, I thought he was a crazy guy. I expected him to be a wackadoo. I expected after getting it, just talking with him 10 minutes that he was going to get out his tinfoil hat, put it on, and start telling me, crazy conspiracy theories. And what I really found out about Cliven was that he is just like any other rancher, like 100 other ranchers I've met in my lifetime, who's just a quiet man, a man full of conviction, a man who had had enough of being pushed around, and he was making a stand. And I think that was the biggest surprise for me, as we sat there on our bunk beds and in our silly little jail uniforms, and we talked about everything from agriculture to the Constitution and everything in between. I think that's what captivated me most, is that Cliven Bundy's the real deal.
How is Cliven now?
Cliven's, last time I saw him, he is just exactly how you'd expect him. He is down. He just went through his harvest season. He's been focused very hard on getting his farm and his ranch back, after being gone nearly 2 years, getting it back to up and running and growing melons and alfalfa hay. The cattle are still out on the range, the same place that they were when they were released back in 2014. He's, down in that southern desert. His skin is all leathered up again and dark, and he's just happy. Last time I saw him, he was laying in the field wrenching on a tractor at 72 years old.
What were the bigger issues than what happened to the Bundys? Obviously, we've covered that, but there's an issue, whether it was in Nevada or Oregon, that really resonated with people in the West. People east of the Great River have no idea of what's going on out here when it comes to lands.
Yeah, the greater issue, especially when it involves the Bundys and the Bunkerville standoff of 2014, was the government has been slowly, over several dozen years, been changing their attitude towards how the unincorporated lands of a state has gone from their stewardship, from state ownership to their stewardship, to the federal government stewardship, to now the federal government just blatantly claims that they own it. And that's significantly different than what most people understand. It's like if you allowed me to stay in your house for a few weeks, and when you returned home, I said, sorry, no, I own this house now, you can't use it. And you've entrusted me originally to just manage the land, and now you are claiming to own the land, or in your case, your house. That's exactly what the federal government's been doing to states. Most people don't realize that the federal government now owns 33% of America, and most of that is in the West. That means that pretty much every piece of land that you drive by on a freeway or a highway in the West belongs to the government, and they claim ownership over it. And so what they do is they rule over it like they're a benevolent landlord instead of a steward or someone who is temporarily managing the property for the state. And that's a significant challenge for people who are living out in the West, living independently and trying to live from the land out here.
Mike Stickler joining us here, talking about his new book concerning Cliven Bundy. And you think about this, Cliven Bundy, American Patriot. When we take a look at Mr. Bundy, you're about the only one that has stood by him and called him a patriot. He's been called a lot of names. And you have people that have stood by his sons and the people in Idaho that went to Oregon, went to Nevada, that were prosecuted by the federal government. What did Cliven learn from his experience with the federal government while being in prison, and is prison a nice place?
Well, prison, I'll answer your last question first. Prison's a very difficult place, especially the institution he was in, and it's a very difficult place for a man his age. You know, I often say, prison's a young man's sport, and it's because when we were there and in the unit they were in together, we're in with 100 men, and all of those guys were gangbangers and drug dealers and carjackers and proud of it. And we had a few folks that were fighting ICE extradition, but, fights break out. There's a lot of racial, not just tensions, but pressure. There's a lot of things that go on in there. And when you're a 70-year-old, at that time, a 70-year-old man, white guy who has never really been or lived around that kind of thing, in fact, lived in a very remote area of the country, it's pretty shocking. And because he and the Bundys were so well respected and loved, they actually got a lot of respect in the institution, but yet that can literally turn in a heartbeat. And then you've got the correctional institution who have a professional air about them. There's no doubt about it, and it's significantly different than the one in Pahrump where they were. Their professionalism is much better than, for example, the regular prisons that are run by the federal government. But there's a dark underbelly that goes on there where they were literally using the institution to pressure the Bundys to plead guilty and to go away for the rest of their lives. And I think what Cliven learned out of that most, this is hard for me to speak for him in this area, but I think what he learned the most is that the government will do whatever it takes to destroy a human being when they've focused and targeted on you. They budgeted over $200 million to incarcerate 19 men over 400 cows. Get that in mind. Over 400 cows, they had $200 million set aside to incarcerate those men. And it's just crazy travesty to think about.
Do you think if Obama had been in office longer that the Bundys ever would have gotten out?
Well, we have to remember that and I think most folks, because they only read the mainstream media, the only people who have covered it, mainstream media has just kind of blown it off as, well, the prosecution, they made some mistakes and legally just didn't cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and that's why the Bundys got out. But that's not true. Under the Obama administration, under Eric Holder, and under the prosecutors of that era, the Bundys, it wasn't just a simple mistake. What they were up to was, the last time I'd heard any government doing what they had done to the Bundys was in the Soviet Union. Snatching people up out of nowhere, coming in, as an example, there were 15 men in the wash during the protests that had rifles, or long guns as the government likes to call them. 11 of those were paid government employees. See, that the media doesn't tell you that. So the balance of the 15, the other 4 guys, were incarcerated. They did things that you cannot imagine. It's actually shocking to me, and I've got a lot of experience in this. It's shocking to me what they are doing. So would they have gotten out? I don't know, because really what got them out was the revelation of how crooked they were. And the judge down there was no friend of the Bundys. She had no love for them at all, but it really got to a point where her conscience, she couldn't any longer put up with it and had to let him go and dismiss all the charges against the Bundys with prejudice. By the way, it's important to know that our prosecutors under Jeff Sessions has doubled down and actually filed an appeal against that decision. And if the Ninth Circuit overturns it, the Bundys will be right back in prison and right back in jeopardy all over again.
Mike Stickler joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Mike, a couple final questions. Was Harry Reid involved in this at all?
Harry Reid was the guy orchestrating it all. What folks don't also understand the backstory was what goes on in southern Nevada is that in order to take a piece of land that's managed by the Bureau of Land Management, in order to take a piece of land and use it for commercial purposes, any kind of commercial purpose, whether it's mining or to build a building on or anything like that, they have to designate land somewhere else in the Mojave Desert for the desert tortoise in perpetuity. And so what was really going on is Harry Reid and his son were busily seizing up land or orchestrating land for commercial purposes for photovoltaic or solar panel farms throughout southern Nevada. And what they were doing was, in order to get that land, they would actually have to swap out some land somewhere else in order for the desert tortoise to live in perpetuity. And if you look at the map at Cliven's ranch and the grazing range around him, to the west there's a 15,000-acre solar farm. To the south there's a 6,000-acre solar farm. And to the east is a national monument, or now a national monument. At the time it was a recreational area. And why they focused on Cliven's land and why they thought he was going to be an easy target was because here's this old rancher who doesn't have much money, who is nothing but a scofflaw and a pain in their butts. They're just going to push him out so that they could build their solar panel farms. That's what this was all about, and make millions off of it. And that's exactly what they were doing. And it's key to realize that it doesn't matter if the solar farm is 150 miles away, like the $4 billion Chinese solar farm they were trying to build, or 1 mile away. All they have to do is anywhere in the Mojave Desert say that there's some land for the tortoise, and then they can move forward with their project. And that's exactly what was going on. Harry Reid orchestrated the whole thing, from bringing in his chief of staff and putting him in charge of the BLM, to raising up Dan Love, who was the law enforcement officer who ran the whole roughshod operation, who was all in order to build more solar farms under the Obama administration. And I lay that all out in the book very clearly so you can understand it. By the way, I researched it thoroughly. All of my charges and the things that I found out are all footnoted, so you can easily go back and identify it. It's one of the most researched documents, if not the most researched document on the Bundy situation to date.
Finally, could you repeat that statement again, that the Jeff Sessions Justice Department is appealing the decision that happened in Nevada, and it could be the Bundys could all be back in prison again?
So, for your audience to understand, the judge in Nevada, she was the supervising federal judge in Nevada, Judge Navarro. She dismissed all the charges against the Bundys and most of the Bundy 19, not all of them, but most of them, with prejudice, meaning the prosecutors cannot charge them again. It's over. The prosecutors have appealed that dismissal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is in San Francisco. Now, arguably the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco is the most liberal court in the world, let alone the country. And it's very possible that they may overturn that dismissal. What that means is they'll immediately reincarcerate the Bundys and start the whole process over again, taking them to court. and trying to put them in prison for the rest of their lives. So this isn't over. May take a couple of years before the Ninth Circuit hears it, but this is long time from over. And the prosecutors down there in Las Vegas have a track record of doing this kind of thing. So again, you know, that kind of alludes back to your question. You know, what did the Bundys learn out of this? They learned that the federal government will stop at nothing to stop someone from doing what they don't want them to do.
Mike Stickler, one more time, if people want to get your book, where can they get it?
Yeah, you know, I would love to invite all your listeners to come and join me, ask all the questions you want, up at Post Falls on this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion Hall, Post Falls. If you can't join us, come go online to ClivenBundy.net. It's ClivenBundy.net, and you can order a book. It includes, by the way, since the last time you and I were together, 4 chapters that includes the entire court case and including the shocking revelations from the whistleblower, who was a BLM officer who actually blew the whistle on what the government was up to. It's pretty amazing. And then the last piece, as a teaser, if you will, there is a section in there about the prosecutors that no one else has written about that I was able to discover, and it's pretty shocking when you read it.
Mike, thank you very much. We're out of time. We appreciate you, brother.
Kevin, I appreciate you, and God bless to you and all your listeners.
God bless you. Our great friend Mike Stickler joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Rick Everett.
And let's find out what's happening in your world. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And don't we love it? The war on men continues. The president outing them last night. Good morning. Waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning on your home for Sean Hannity, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, do the November elections really matter when it comes to electing, I don't know, the governor, the congressman, the lieutenant governor? Did we use all our efforts, all our energy in the May primary? That is one. There was a big, I guess you'd call it a gubernatorial forum last night at the College of Idaho. Good props for them for doing that. It was covered by our news partners at Channel 7. When you hear Channel 7 on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. And I do want to get to this issue involving what Donald Trump said, that, hey, if you're a guy, you're an endangered species. Jim in Boise, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. I just had a question from your last caller. I don't know if you know the answer. They were just talking about the Ninth Circuit possibly overturning the decision to release the Bundys. But what about President Trump's presidential pardon? I know it wasn't for all the Bundys, but for the ones that were released, would they be exempt from that, or could that overturn his pardon? I'm not sure how that would work.
Well, I got my legal training from Law and Order, but a pardon is a pardon. If you get pardoned, game over.
So they wouldn't be held, just the ones who weren't pardoned.
Right.
From what my guess is. Okay, I just wasn't sure because I remember that coming through a while back and I was excited about it, but when your last guest mentioned the overturning of that, like, well, wait a minute, I thought they were covered from that. So that's frustrating. But that's what it is.
It is, and it's very frustrating that Jeff Sessions, if Mr. Stickler is correct, is trying to appeal that decision.
Well, hopefully things change soon. We'll see how that goes. Another month and a half.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Jim, for listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Our man Pete in Mountain Home on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pete.
Kevin, I would like to say first that when they're talking about Donald Trump fostering resentment and division, I seem to recall Obama spent 8 years dividing this country along racial and ethnic lines as much as he could. And then I would like to say to that Senator Mazie, is it from, what's her face, from Hawaii?
Yes.
That wants the men to shut up. I'd like her to go to Omaha Beach and say that. Or, I don't know, Little Round Top at Gettysburg or Guadalcanal. Some of those places, Arlington Cemetery. Go to Arlington and tell those men to shut up.
Great point, Pete. Great point. Thank you.
You bet.
And before we get to more phone calls, let's take a listen to Paulette Jordan and Brad Little last night from Channel 7, courtesy of, the College of Idaho.
What areas in the state budget should we be spending more money
Well, I would first rephrase that. It's not about more spending. It's about better spending, smarter spending. We have lacked in investments towards education, especially when it comes to K through 12. We have really positioned ourselves to the bottom of dang near everything when it comes to ratings in the country. We have to look at how are we going to support rural education and increase teacher pay. But if we are not focusing on education and we're not advancing ourselves, especially when it comes down to career tech and vocational training, we're missing out on multiple opportunities as we have a tech sector that's trying to rise up and grow in our state, missing employment opportunities and missing revenue growth.
Today, no state has made a bigger investment in K-12 than the state of Idaho. Today, Idaho leads the nation in increasing teacher pay more than any other state in the union. We've got more work to do there, but I couldn't be happier with the consensus. We've got other things that we've got to address, but there's a consensus that exists in Idaho between our parents, our educators, our trustees, the business community, all the players, and it shows up when we pass an appropriation bill. You know, to increase every year over $100 million increase every year in the Idaho legislature.
So there we have it from our friends at Channel 7 last night. A little Paulette Jordan, a little Brad Little. And, you know, we know that Brad Little listens to this program every morning. He's told me that. I'm sure he'll be interested to see what your reaction is to this. And really, if you're involved in politics or governance, this is the program that you listen to get the vibe of the people. I just think, and look, everybody else is, I don't know, trying to shine up their Idaho Press Club Awards, which are very nice, or, you know, whatever other shiny objects they have, and saying, well, this is going to be a race. It's not going to be a race. You hear about the blue wave. This is going to be the red tsunami. In fact, mark that down. I need to write, the red tsunami is coming, Idaho. Brad Little survived the primary. I still wish we could talk about the primary. I find it fascinating. I find this race eminently boring, considering the fact that Paulette Jordan is. I mean, look. Let me put it to you this way. Remember how competitive the primary was? We had television ads for Tommy Ahlquist, for the Congressman Labrador, for everybody else. We haven't had any ads running. The election's what? 5 weeks away? It's a dud. Why? Because the real election was in May. I mean, let's face it. If you're Paulette Jordan, you're just doing these appearances and I guess trying to get a contract with CNN. She's done. Think about this. And by the way, A.J. Belukoff and I may agree to disagree on issues, but if you're a state Democrat, A.J. Belukoff was a much more competitive candidate than Paulette Jordan. I don't know what happened. A.J. spent his own money. I saw him running in Fit One. He's a nice, honorable, soft-spoken man. Then you have two clear, distinct visions. And you do in this race between Jordan, who, when she's not in California, allegedly, when she's not attacking the press, which is always a bad call unless you're a talk show host, is, you know, running around to whatever national spotlight you can get. It doesn't work. Brad Little, whether you like him, whether you don't like him, what does he do? He grinds it out. He's got the backing. I mean, look, you saw that with you heard it with the frequency of the ads. But if you're a state Democrat, and I know I'm not your favorite guy, I'm not the guy you invite to the party, the wedding, anything else, you have got to be going, we're going to get killed. I mean, Paulette Jordan has like one ad, and it's online, where I'm not making this. It's God sent me a candidate, Paulette Jordan. Let's take a listen to this, and I think we'll post it later on KIDOTalkRadio.com.
I just figure if God wanted us to vote, he'd give us candidates. And there just hasn't been any candidates. But finally, we have a candidate, Paulette Jordan. I'm Randy Priest, and she's got my vote. I'm voting for her. And I invite you all to join in. Let's get her in office.
There we have it. God sent me a candidate, and it was Paulette Jordan. We don't make fun of the Lord here. We love the Lord, but I don't really find that very compelling. But this race is done. If I'm Brad Little, I just continue to campaign and move on. That's really what it is. David in Weiser with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, David.
Hi, Kevin. That woman has not a chance to win. There's absolutely, I don't think I know anybody that would vote for her. I think I'm voting Republican across the board, right down to the gaming machines.
I see.
Well, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Nobody wants that woman. She sounds like she's in a box talking over mics squeaking and stuff. At least you don't have the squeaky microphone.
I agree, David. How is life in Weiser this morning?
It's absolutely wonderful. I just went to McDonald's and got me a large cup of coffee with 5 creams.
Now, this is what we call the in-depth team coverage. We not only want to know what's going on, but what's in your coffee.
No, cream.
The 5 creams. So,
yeah.
So besides the gambling and the Medicaid expansion, that's really what people are going to be voting for, I think.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about taking any more of our money. I think that may be a little bit out of bounds, but I don't know. Maybe we could afford it.
Well, we can afford to buy. We can afford to buy HP. And by the way, I got to say that I'm so happy that the state took over the HP campus, even though it cost us in excess of $130 million. At least they're mowing the lawn, because when HP had it, they didn't.
Yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? It's just it was a nightmare to drive past there. It's bad enough the hills catch on fire, let alone someplace downtown. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, David, you have a great day. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, thanks, Kevin Miller. I do appreciate your show, and I listen to you every morning, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Well, thanks. Hopefully that'll keep us employed.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Neither do I.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, David. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436-580-KIDO. It really comes down to this. Paulette Jordan is probably the weakest Democratic candidate, and this isn't a partisan thing that anybody's ever had. And I know I'm getting close because there have been a couple of more cheap shots against this program. Malign. They've tried to, we're going to turn the word Kavanaugh's. And that's what people are trying to do, and I'm aware of it. But we drive on because we are so close to blowing up the Death Star. And in this state, it will be fascinating to see the conservative Republicans versus the moderate Republicans coming together during the legislative session under a new leader, which will be Brad Little. I mean, I don't know if there's any odds in Vegas on this. I don't know if you have to spot Paulette Jordan any points. I'm not a gambler, but clearly she's just done. I think pro-life has a better shot at winning. And I love pro-life than Paulette Jordan. Is anybody else going to call her out? No, they're not. They're going to go on with this farce. This is not a race. This is going to be just, I can't even say those words because they'd accuse me of some type of misappropriation of words on the radio. I can't even say beatdown anymore. It won't be a contested race. All right, the politically correct, sanitized version of the Kevin Miller Show continues. 580-5436-580-KIDO. Coming up, the president fights back, defends Judge Kavanaugh, and takes a shot at Dr. Ford. Did he go too far? Hear it next and talk about it with me, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
It's destroyed. And these are people, I'm not going to name names, but I'm not sure they have a soul. I don't think their mother breastfed them. I think they went right to raw meat. If Dr. Ford's in the way, destroy her. Breach her confidentiality, destroy her kids, destroy her family. Brett Kavanaugh's in the way, destroy him and his kids.
There we have it, Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, with our own Tucker Carlson, saying that Democrats were not breastfed, but instead were raised on a diet of raw meat. You only hear that here in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. We can neither confirm nor deny Senator Kennedy's allegation. Conservative Steve, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Conservative Steve.
How you doing, Kevin?
Not bad, brother, and you?
Oh, let not your heart be troubled, buddy. About Paulette Jordan, that's a great selection for the Democrats. That's about as good as Hillary running this last year. That's about as exciting.
Right.
You know, that's okay. It's all good. But, you know, getting back to what, now you had touched a little bit briefly, I believe I heard a piece this morning a bit about, you were talking about her lie detector, an ex-boyfriend came forward.
Yep.
Is that being on the mainstream? Has Fox got a hold of that or anybody yet?
I believe Laura Ingram's got a hold of it on Fox, yeah.
Oh, okay, so they've got it out on the mainstream. I wasn't around last night. I heard it late.
Well, they're too busy.
Well, really
they're too busy mocking Trump for dividing men versus women. But it wasn't Trump that said that men should shut up.
Oh, exactly, and it's all coming back to get him. Did you hear that? I heard last night, or that like somewhere where he was speaking in Mississippi or Tennessee, 92,000 tickets were asked for. And there was only room for like 20,000 or something. There was one guy that got on and said it was the biggest fun time party he ever went to. He traveled for like 6 hours, waited for like 6 hours, and he was like number 4 in line, couldn't get in, but he stayed around, and he said they estimated there were over 100,000 people gathered there. So really, this FBI investigation, I think it's like Trump said, hey, this could be a blessing in disguise because they're starting to dig up stuff on Ford, her social media that was erased and gotten rid of. Some people have salvaged it. Now they're reposting it. So this isn't a little choir girl, I'll assure you. And the CIA connections, according to Savage, undergraduate instruction at Stanford, her grandfather in the CIA for 30 years. I mean, you know, this stuff is it's starting to be interesting now. So maybe it is a blessing in disguise that they're investigating. But the Republicans got to man up here, Kevin, that's for sure. They can't be scared off because right now 90% of Republican women are for Kavanaugh. And I know a lot of independents that are just disgusted. Friends of mine that aren't even really involved, they're kind of independents. They are just appalled at what's happening to Kavanaugh, man.
And they should be.
Absolutely. With no proof.
Conservative Steve, thank you, brother.